Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is a Piracy Show. Now, of course, last week on Ship Updates, they're talking about the Item 2.0 system, and, I kind of, expressed my feelings on, the cockpit system, the MFDs and whatnot, and I kind of wanted to elaborate on that some more. And because since so many of the comments were generally in that area, it would be more or less like answering the same question over and over, or, replying to the same comment over and over. I'm just going to kind of generalize and kind of stick it all together. Overall, in a fighter system, like in a fighter, when you see them kind of going around and manipulating the little switches, you see engine on, engine off, that little, the basic things. Realistically, the interactions in a cockpit, I think that's all that it could ever be. It could never be combat related, because if it was combat related, could you imagine you're in a dogfight and you have to look down into the cockpit and start playing with switches and dials? It's like, hey guys, wait, time out. I have to change my settings. Click. Okay, game on. No, that shit don't happen. People are gonna be like, what? Kill him now. So, in a fighter, I don't really see that it's ever gonna be that much of a thing. And I mean, even if it was, just the power up cycle for your ship, like let's say getting started, you might wind up in a situation where you have to get out of a place very, very quickly. I mean, people who live out of Grim Hex know all about that. And you don't have time to, okay, engine on, open fuel flow, blah, blah, or I guess it would be open fuel flow, then start engine, blah, blah, blah. And doing all this stuff, and meanwhile there's people sneaking into the back of your ship with machine guns. It's like, I don't think that's a thing that's ever going to be required. I think that's just going to be like a little bit of flavor on the fighters. But for the larger ships, there were some comments along those lines, and I agree. Like, when you're interacting with all these little switches and dials, especially like at an engineering station or something like that, I mean, obviously you can zoom into a certain screen for like shields or maybe power systems or whatnot, and you can manipulate them live without having to go around to all the little switches and dials. So I think it would be a little bit more efficient that way. But I think the real core value will come, once again with that Item 2.0 system and all that, is being able to actually see, use, remove, and replace components within the ship. I mean, I would say that it would probably be something like akin to, on Star Trek when they're crawling around in the little Jeffries tubes and whatnot, and they're fixing this subjunction or that thing or whatnot. I think that's really gonna bring the larger ships to life. And overall, having watched the game's development for so long, when I first pledged in, I was like, ooh, fighters are cool. Now I look at fighters in a totally different light. I look at the big ships and I'm like, that's where the real gameplay is going to be. That's going to be some crazy friggin' adventures on those things. I don't think that fighters are going to be as rewarding or as deep as the big ships are going to be. I think that especially like for the RP crowd, I think that they're going to really get into the big ships a heck of a lot more than they're going to get into the fighters. I mean, technically all the same pieces are there, but I think it's just going to feel, with a larger ship, freelancer or even bigger, it's going to feel more real and more, just more immersive to me, in my opinion. Now, there was some comments, or at least one that I directly recall, where someone was saying, well, having the MFDs back up into the helmet, if you had, strictly speaking, like a pilot's helmet where it's, the clear open glass view and nothing's obstructed, and you could then have, I don't know, perhaps the correct package on your ship, the correct, cards within the ship's processor unit or whatnot, so that you could actually have all those MFDs actually wired up into your helmet. That would be cool, and I hope that really does become a thing, that where you can do that, because those MFDs, I don't know about you, because I think I've got pretty good eyes, and most of those things are damned illegible. And it's all, and I think a lot of it, unfortunately, is it's kind of that false perspective that we get in so many of these games, even like this game, Star Citizen, certainly has that, and it's kind of a holdover from, you know, the early sim games going all the way back to the 80s, where they kind of presented, you know, there was a big drive to kind of make it more real, to make it more immersive. So they would show your whole control panel and all the switches and dials, and then as the games got more sophisticated, all the switches and dials would move, and you know, you'd be like, oh my god, it's like being in a real fighter. But it really wasn't, because it's kind of like, even though you can see all these things, and I mean, you can experience it for yourself. I mean, whenever next time you're in your car, drive your car down the road, you know, when you're looking out, when you're seeing like all the surfaces in your car. You're seeing, you know, your speedometer, your tachometer, your radio, you're seeing everything. But when you're actually looking down the road and you're looking at the horizon, you can't read your odometer. You can't tell what station your radio is on unless you look at them. And it's that kind of weird dual perspective where, you know, we're aware of things in the periphery of our vision, but not to such a degree that we can actually use them. And that's kind of, I think, one of the problems with the MFDs is, you know, creating that big, you know, that open cockpit view and trying to, you know, give players a usable view area. Those MFDs are down and to the side, and they're so far away from the player that they're pretty much illegible. At least that's my experience. I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody who's got like better than 20/20 is like, oh no, I can read them perfectly. But I think for the most part, most people are like, yeah, it's just window dressing for me. They're completely non-functional. And you know, just once again, it's like having that cockpit view and making all those MFDs more or less kind of useless unless you zoom into them. And once again, in combat, are you going to be able to say, you know, guys, time out, I got to go look at my MFD and see what's going on there? No, like, I think you would want to have all of that projected up into your helmet, and kind of, as long as you had the correct pilot's helmet, then yeah, I think that should be kind of the way it goes. But we'll have to wait and see how all of that falls into place with the final product, or at least a much more finished version of the product. So I don't think we're going to see the final product for a while, which is, you know, I mean, it is what it is. People, someone asked me, it's like, what, you know, why do you keep using the Pathfinder demo in the background, and the the other one, the whole ground combat sequence where you're going to loot the javelin? Why do you keep using that as background footage? How come you haven't been using game footage? And the truth is because, like, I've been pushing myself away from playing Star Citizen for a little while now, just because with 3.0 coming, I think it would just kind of like drive me a little bit batty if I was like, oh my god, I just wish 3.0 was here, you know. So I've been kind of busying myself playing other things, you know, always watching Star Citizen, always paying attention. But at the same time, I find that, like, right now, if I played it, it would frustrate me, because it's been the same thing for so long. You know, it's a game in development. You know, that's not a dig at the developers. They're doing what they're doing their thing. But I mean, 2.6 is cool, and it showed off a lot of new tech, but at the same time, it's not like there's hundreds of hours of gameplay in 2.6. It's kind of like, you know, there's a few missions, and there's at most, like 3 hours worth of realistic gameplay before you're like, I have seen everything, I have done everything, I am finished. You know, so I just can't do the PI mission again right now. So I've been like, let's get some good footage, and we'll just use that for the time being. And plus, you know, producing that footage, not having to produce it, rather kind of shave some time off of making these videos. It makes them a little bit easier to do. One of the things also that I found, you know, that has kept me kind of, or it has made me a little bit more relaxed, you know, kind of waiting for 3.0 to drop, is I've kind of found other things to kind of busy myself with. You know, I've been talking about World of Warcraft a little bit here and there. And I've just, like, a lot of that, the drive to do that was just because, you know, I know that I would go stir crazy just waiting for 3.0. And I know there's a lot of people who, you know, play different games or whatnot, or whether it's space engineers or whatever. Or, yeah, I mean, we could sit here and name games off for hours, but the truth is, like, if you have something like that, honestly, if you're not doing it, just play the shit out of it right now. Trust me, if it'll take the edge off if you're waiting for 3.0. It really, really will. Because you look at the release date window is now sitting at, what is it, July 6th to the 20th? And that's probably going to get pushed again, though interestingly enough, the Evocati release date has not changed, which I think is the 16th of June, 12th or 16th. Is when that is supposed to happen. So who knows? We might see some videos pop up on YouTube with the disclaimer on them. This is not my video. You know, so when people start getting mad, they're like, I hope you get banned for releasing this. And everyone else is like, yes, finally, someone's showing us some stuff. Yeah, who knows? We might be seeing that stuff in as little as a week or 2 weeks. So, hey, I mean, that's something to look forward to, definitely. But, you know, I was looking at the production schedule over the weekend. I was like, okay, so not much has really changed. You know, kind of, I was digging for tidbits and digging for information, but it was just like, you know, it's just not there. Because everyone is just so busy putting out 3.0 right now that there really isn't that much going on. And so it's been kind of like, you know, for me sitting here, it's just like, what am I going to make a video about when there's nothing really going on that is, you know, visible to us, you know. If we could see everything that was going on at CIG, there'd probably be a lot more to talk about, but unfortunately, it's just not there, you know. They've got better things to do, and they've got bigger fish to fry. But, you know, here's a question I wanted to ask. How much content, realistically, do you think that is going to drop with 3.0 in terms of things that you can do in the universe? Apart, you know, obviously, there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to be like, hey, you know, I'm going to be one of them. I just want to land my cutlass on a planet, hop onto my dragonfly, and just, you know, circumnavigate a planet or something like that. And just explore and just see what's out there and do that shit for hours. But in terms of missions and things like that, how much do you really think that there's going to be? Do you think that there's going to be like a lot of it, or just a very, very small amount? You know, just like here's some sprinklings of some things. We're going to fatten this up later, but just to give you an idea of the direction that we're heading, enjoy. That sort of thing. Or do you think that there's going to be like a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different missions going on and all that? I wonder, you know, I really, really do, because it was funny because they were talking about it. I think it was on a happy hour not too long ago, and they were talking about like, wow, we were really not prepared for how quickly people found like Big Benny's henge out by Yella, you know, the giant Stonehenge with all the Big Benny's machines. It was like, wow, we didn't think the people would find it that quickly. And I was sitting there laughing. So I was like, have you met the internet? Let me introduce you. Internet, you know, Jared, internet. Clearly you have not met. Of course they found it in like 5 minutes. What are you talking about? If there's anything hidden in your game, trust me, there is like a Discord group, there are discussion groups. How do we find this thing? Oh, you know, is it here? Is it there? And just all the ridiculous things that go along with that. I mean, as an example, you know, when Legion first dropped in World of Warcraft, there was all these hidden appearances that you could unlock for your artifact weapons. And there literally were people who were like turning over every possible stone in the game looking for these hidden artifact appearances. There were Discord groups, there were discussion groups. It was insanity. just people working out how to solve the riddles, how to find all the pieces and stuff like that. It was crazy. And it's just, when you hear a comment like this, I couldn't believe how quickly they found Big Benny's engines. Oh, that's adorable. You're funny. But I hope that, I don't know. I would like to see a lot of missions that we could do, a lot of stuff like that. But at the same time, just having all these new things to explore, that I think could be pretty interesting in and of itself. But, we used to say the same thing about 2.0. It's like, oh my God, we're actually going to have like a big, we're not going to have a big universe, but, we're going to have this big play area. It's going to be all these, thousands and hundreds of thousands of kilometers across in every direction. We're going to be able to go to this planet and this moon and blah, 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 blah. And how quickly we just burned through all of that. And then it was just like, okay, more. And that's what I'm thinking. It's like 3.0. How long is that going to stay fresh before we're all just like, okay, more. I need more. I need my fix. Come on, bro. I need my fix. Give me more missions. Now, one of the cool things, though, that I think about, because even if we don't get a lot of missions, even if it's just exploring planets, I think that one area where the gameplay could get really rewarding is with the persistence of your ship. Once again, your ship, you just can't say, oh well, I blew it up, I'll just conjure up a new one, Shazam, and it's all fully loaded ammo, and we just go out and do our thing. But with that kind of persistence, where if you go to what is it? Oh, I was just thinking about the station too, but with any of the the wrecks or the space stations where you can grab little crates and knock them into your ship. I did some videos where I was stealing stuff and throwing it into my Caterpillar. But now when that stuff will still be there when you log back in, I mean, think about it, because then you can go around with your Cutlass, your Caterpillar, your Herald, sorry, and you could go and pick up all those guns that are floating in space in random places and fill up your gun racks with those guns. You could store them there. You could go and get suits of armor, combat armor, and just throw that on your ship and keep all these things there. And I think it's kind of stocking up your ship with all these different things is going to be kind of cool. And then you're going to have to be careful, because is all that stuff going to be replaced? No, maybe not. Maybe your ship will be replaced, but all those little odds and ends aren't going to be replaced. So you're going to have to be a little bit more careful. It's not just going to be about flying around and just smashing things now. Now you're going to actually have to be careful with it. And I think that that's going to really bring an interesting dimension to the game. Something that's been, I think, sorely needed for a while is that sense of permanence and persistence, which, I mean, at the current stage of development just is not there. It's just like, oh, did my ship blow up? Okay, I'll make another one. Shazam, and it's there. No. That I think is going to be really rewarding and something really cool. I don't think we'll ever get to keep any of that stuff, because at one point we are going to hit that point when we actually get to beta, and then a little bit beyond that, probably before everything becomes quote unquote permanent, and it's just everything from here on out counts, because otherwise if everything from now forward counted, I think it would be crazy. But repairs will actually cost money, ammo will cost money, and that, I think, that is going to be an interesting thing to see how people react to ammo, missiles, and things like that actually costing in-game credits. I think to see how that kind of plays on the dynamic of combat is going to be interesting, because people are going to be a lot more careful, and there's going to be a lot less of the old, oh, I'm just going to fly in with a gladiator and throw out 20 missiles and then run away. There's going to be a lot less of that shit going on, and people are going to be a lot more careful. And so to see how that kind of plays out in the game, I think that is going to be really, really interesting in the near future. One of the other interesting things about 3.0 that I'm going to be watching for, one of the things that I think is going to be interesting to see how it plays out, is that, this game is not going to be instance in the classical sense. And so all these objectives for all these missions are going to exist in that same persisting universe for everyone. And so there might not be enough of those objectives to go around. There might be people competing for those objectives. And I'm really interesting to, I'm really interested to see how that's going to play out. You know, if people are going to just naturally work cooperatively, or if people are going to just outright just free for all and just kill each other trying to complete these missions. In WoW right now, there's a very similar system in the world PvP objectives. There are certain ones that appear from time to time in different zones, and it's just a complete free-for-all. I mean, it can be horde against horde, it can be alliance against alliance. It's every man, everyone for themselves. And there are times when I would go into those missions, and it's just pandalirium everywhere. Everyone is just going nuts, killing each other, and everyone's just ganking and murdering each other like crazy. And then there are other times when I go in there and everyone just leaves everybody alone. Alliance, horde, they're all flagged. Everyone can attack everybody, but no one's touching anyone. And everyone's just going around completing all the objectives, taking the completion and walking away. I'm really interested to see how that plays out in Star Citizen. I'm wondering if it's going to play out the same way. You know, is it just going to be a factor of some people are like this, some people are not, or is there going to be like a difference in communities? It's going to be kind of weird to see how that plays out. You know, I think that in general you're going to see both sides of it, because I think that's just how some people are. You know, some people are just like, I just want to go in and complete my objectives, dude. If it's as long as nobody fucks with me, I'm not going to fuck with anybody, and I'm just going to walk away. Whereas other people are like, fucking PvP, man. Every single second of gameplay must be metal as fuck. Let's go. Let's do this. You know, it's going to be weird to see how that all balances out, but I think that, you know, game developers kind of play a role in kind of shaping the quality of a community in a maybe not so conscious way sometimes. You know, a long time ago, there was, you know, the game is still out, but Star Trek Online, when Star Trek Online originally released way back in the day, it was released by Atari, Infogrames, using the Atari name. Atari really isn't a thing anymore. And when it released, they literally threw that game out the door before it was even really a beta. I mean, that game pretty much hit the street in alpha form. And obviously, you know, the obvious thing happened when it was that bad. A lot of people left the game. It took them a while to kind of get the game sorted out, and it's not in the best state, but it's not in a bad state, really. I mean, it can be fun at times. It certainly has its charm. But when it originally released, and a lot of the newer players don't know this, when it originally released, the only people who had a full PvE campaign to level up was the Federation. The Klingons never had that. And, you know, the Klingons were a playable faction day one, but they never had that. The only way the Klingon players could level was through PvP. That was it. It was just instance 5-on-5 PvP. That's it. That's the only way you could get a Klingon all the way up through the levels, and that's one of the things that I did. And it was interesting for me to see how the different communities developed. Because the Klingons, having only this one thing to level up, were forced to become good at it. Were forced to become, like, ridiculously good at it. And it was almost... It had become such a meme on the forums to see a thread that said, "Nerf Klingons now. OMG, Klingons so overpowered." And having played on both the Federation and the Klingon side, I kind of had, the inside track on that. And I knew that realistically, having played on both sides so much, I knew why the Klingons were winning. And it wasn't because Klingon ships were OP, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God. It's just because Klingons were forced to coordinate with each other, to team up and to call out targets if they had any hope of winning a battle. And so the Klingons, they always did the same thing. They always came in with full, alpha setups, glass cannons. They would just come in and they would just pop cooldowns, decloak, and just pick a target and burn that target. And then they would just either vanish, or they would, after that had happened, they would move on to the next and to the next, and they would just fold the Federation team. And whereas like Federation players would show up with kind of a generalist mission running PvE setup, whatever they had, Klingon players were always super focused on getting, max alpha and, getting all the cooldowns lined up and all of this. And then even when they were cloaked and moving around, it wasn't so much the actual cloaking that was the advantage. It was the fact that they could then sit there and say, we're going to kill this guy, and then this guy, and then that guy. And you could see it play out in game after game after game. And having played it from both sides, I totally understood it. But, I would go on the forums and I would see these threads where people were like, oh my God, Klingons are so overpowered. And it wasn't that they were overpowered. It was just that they were coordinating and they were actually playing as a team and not just doing like a whole free-for-all thing. And you can see this in battlegrounds in so many games. You can tell when your team's coordinating and when your team is just whatever. And so in Star Citizen, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because if we're all forced to compete for all the same objectives and there's only so much to go around, it'll be interesting to see how that shapes the community and what kind of players kind of come out of that, because there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers, but it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of shapes the community. And that's some of the stuff that I'm kind of like, I really want to see how all that's going to work out in the end once 3.0 releases. And some of that maybe will be a little bit more distant in the future, but I definitely think those are things that are going to be interesting to watch once again, once we get our hands on 3.0. But, still a little bit of a ways away. Hopefully some of the Evocati will start releasing their videos on YouTube if they do get access. This is not my video. Someone just gave me this footage videos on YouTube. Anyways, yeah, that's been the show for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.